Good evening, viewers, and welcome to Talk Back with Gillian. This is your Sunday evening TV program where we take a look at the trending political issues in our country today. Well, last week I was a bit under the weather, and so I was not here on the program. And we had the press conference from that week by the leader of the opposition. However, I'm here with you today, and once again I say good evening and thanks for being here with me. I'll be with you in your homes up until 8 hours this evening. Well, we know lots have been going on the political scene here in Guyana. So much, things have been happening. It's have been a hot scene going on around the country. And today on Talk Back with Gillian, I want us to look at the $10.3 million that was awarded to the video mega productions company owned by Minister Cathy Hughes. Then we are also going to look at and play you the recording from the Professor Errol Miller and his thoughts on the no confidence motion case that will be coming up on May 9th and 10th at the CCJ and its implications for the Caribbean Commonwealth. Also, we'll be looking at the new appointments and the new MPs and the reassignments of ministers of the government. And finally, we'll be looking at an excerpt from the press conference last week on the 25th of April by the leader of the opposition and making some statements there on the issues at the Cheddi Jagan International Airport as it relates to the expansion project. So we have lots and lots of information there for you. But before we get into the meat of the program, let me just bring you an excerpt from Dr. Cheddi Jagan in 1961, and it states that we must all remember the lessons of the past as a guide for the management and planning of the future. We must all remember the lessons of the past as a guide for the management and planning of the future. And that was an excerpt from one of the speeches of Dr. Cheddi Jagan in 1961. So, as we get into the program, well, we know that the issues here that we had Ms. Gail Teixeira from the Parliamentary opposition making the statement of Minister Cathy Hughes being her company Video Mega Productions being awarded contracts to the tune of over $10.3 million. And those comments was denied by the minister, stating that it was not true. She was not aware of such contracts, going to her company, and that she was going to sue Ms. Gail Teixeira for $10 million, I think it is, because of those, as she claimed, scandalous statements. However, Ms. Teixeira refused to remove from her position, and she said she was standing by what she said. Now, after that, we had some information coming out, and the information revealed that within a 4-month period, the Video Mega Productions company was awarded contracts to the tune of $10.3 million. And those contracts were in May 2018. The Ministry of Natural Resources paid to the company $1.4 million for artwork. Then in June, they had 2 contracts that was awarded to the company, one for $939,738 for vacancy ads, $119,670 for Facebook page. Then in July, there were 2 contracts also, one for another $1.4 million for video productions by the Ministry of Education. And also in July, the Ministry of Public Health paid $3.5 million for advertisements. Then in September, the CTUICT Roadshow paid $2.2 million for advertisements, and the Ministry of Public Infrastructure paid $256,500 for television ads, and it all mounted up to $10.3 million. So that is the information there. And the minister, we have not heard from her since making any further comments based on that. And, you know, these are where we're looking at when they talk about nepotism and friendism and the giving things to your friends. That was always being labeled as the PPP. But now we're seeing happening in the very government here, that these things are happening and it continues to happen. And the minister saying she does not know, but the truth coming out, and the company, the production company, saying yes, they were awarded contracts, but you know, it was done in an ad hoc manner. So that being so, Mr. Shearer standing by her word that this was the information and this was what was going on in our public domain on the government side, and the fact that these things were not being tendered for, and the fact that it was a conflict of interest because the minister owns the company and the ads from the government ministries were going to that company. And that was just for 4 months in 2018. What would have happened since late 2015 and 2016 and 2017. So that's what we have there on that issue there. And, you know, we see it happening in so many quarters along the government line when we talk about corruption and we talk about fraudulent transactions. These things continue to happen, and seemingly wanting to place the blame on the PPP, even though they're in opposition, everything seems still to be our fault. Well, we didn't give those ads to the production company to be aired. Next I have coming up, I'll get the extract played from Dr. Errol Miller with regards to the no confidence motion and the case as it is at the CCJ, which comes up on the 9th and 10th of May for a decision as it relates to the no confidence motion, which the opposition appealed at the level of the CCJ. So over to that interview, or really not an interview, but a statement by Professor Errol Miller on the case of the no confidence motion.
The Caribbean Court of Justice has been asked to rule on an appeal from Guyana which has far-reaching implications and impact for other governments and citizens of the Commonwealth Caribbean. It concerns the simple question: what amounts to a majority vote by our parliamentarians in our jurisdictions? The facts are as follows. On December 21, 2018, the National Assembly of Guyana, consisting of 65 members, voted 33 to 32 in favor of a no confidence motion. The Speaker certified the vote. A case was then adjudicated in the Supreme Court of Guyana, in which the learned Chief Justice ruled that 33 constituted a majority vote for the motion. The alternative proposition before the Chief Justice was that it was 34 votes that constituted a majority. The mathematical foundation of that proposition was that the total number of 65 members of the Assembly should be divided by 2, then rounded to the next whole number, after which 1 should be added to the result. That is, 65 divided by 2 equals 32.5, rounded to the next whole number, 33, and then add 1, 34. An appeal contesting the ruling of the Chief Justice was lodged in the Appeal Court of Guyana, where the case was heard by 3 judges of the appeal court. 2 judges upheld the appeal, and 1 judge denied the appeal. That is, agreed with the decision of the Chief Justice. An appeal has been lodged with the Caribbean Court of Justice for final decision. The decision of the CCJ will not only apply to Guyana, but to countries of the Commonwealth Caribbean that regard the CCJ as the final court of authority or hopes to do so. The implication for the democracy in the Commonwealth Caribbean will be profound. Up to 2001, the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago had 36 seats. In the general elections of December 2001, the vote was tied in terms of the number of seats, 18-18. It took 10 months for the deadlock, hiatus, and paralysis in the Parliament to be resolved by the general elections of October 2002. Realizing all the dangers that had been averted and counseled by the paralysis that had occurred in the Parliament, the government and people of Trinidad and Tobago moved to increase the number of seats to an odd number, 41. The general elections in Trinidad and Tobago in November 2007 was contested on 41 seats in the Parliament. Taking note of the experience of Trinidad and Tobago, the people and government of Jamaica acted and amended the Constitution of Jamaica to increase the number of constituencies into which Jamaica was divided from 60, an even number, to 65, with an immediate adjustment to 63. The general elections of September 2007 was contested on 63 seats. In the Jamaican general elections of February 2016, the Jamaica Labour Party won 32 seats, and the People's National Party, which had been the government, won 31 seats. The government changed hands. There was no contest, no protest on the basis of the 1-seat majority. In addition, all laws that have been passed in the House of Representatives on 32 to 31, that is a 1-seat majority, a 1-vote majority, has been accepted as valid and legal. On the basis of this experience, at least Trinidad and Tobago and Jamaica should have more than a casual interest in the result of this case from Guyana as it is adjudicated by the Caribbean Court of Justice. The mathematical foundation of the proposition that 34 seats constitute a majority in the 65-seat National Assembly represents new electoral mathematics. It requires the presence of 2 unnamed phantom members in the National Assembly. 33 persons actually voted on December 21, 2018 in the Parliament. If 34 is a majority, then when you add 33 plus 34, you'll get 67 votes. But there are only 65 seats in the National Assembly. Applied to Trinidad and Tobago, the calculation would be 41 divided by 2 equal 20.5, rounded to the next whole number, 22, plus 1, 23, plus 22 equal 43 votes in the 41-member Parliament. Applied to Jamaica, it would be 63 divided by 2 equal 31.5, rounded to the next whole number, 32 plus 1 equal 33, plus 32 equal 65 votes in the 63-member Parliament. More votes cast than is constitutionally eligible constitutes electoral malpractice in all Commonwealth Caribbean countries, and probably across the world. It is commonly referred to as overvoting, more votes cast than there are persons eligible to cast them. One can only hope that the members of the learned profession representing both sides of this case before the CCG will ensure that all legal procedures and all technicalities are strictly observed in a timely manner, and that the various points of view are argued with the highest levels of logic, facts, and eloquence, such that the matter to be decided by the judges of the CCJ are with respect to law and merit. Perhaps the CCJ is the most fitting court to review what transpired in the Guyanese Parliament and courts. The CCJ's present president, Justice Adrian Saunders, in a recent presentation at a human rights forum in Jamaica, described the CCJ's deliberation as seen from near, judging from far. Hopefully, this close-up knowledge and understanding of the Commonwealth Caribbean, coupled with its commitment to arm's-length application of logic and law, will exemplify high principle, common sense, and the wisdom, the proven wisdom of electoral practices in the Commonwealth Caribbean and our democracies.
You were listening there to that bit of comment made there by Professor Errol Miller on his thoughts on the no confidence motion appeal at this level of the CCJ and what its implications for the Caribbean Commonwealth. And if you listened carefully, you would have heard that he were making the statement, at least for that kind of mathematics, this new type of mathematics, electoral mathematics, it means that you will have to have 2 phantom voters. So my thoughts, are we having phantoms in the parliament, ghosts in the parliament, you know, people who vote, we don't see them, but they're there, but they don't make up the 65 seats that is in parliament. Those 2 will come to make the seats of 67, and you know, we don't see extra seats around the place there for the ghosts to sit and to be able to vote. At least we don't know the names, and the names were not called on that night that the no confidence motion was tabled in Parliament, debated and voted upon. So lots of implications there, and as we continue to say, a no confidence motion was not plucked out of the sky by the parliamentary opposition. It was based on the fact that persons complained, they had no confidence in the government, they were fed up, they were disgusted, things were not happening the way they thought it was going to happen or it was promised to them. They weren't getting this good life. And so as representatives of the people, the opposition tabled the motion. We were told to bring it on, and then it did come on and voted upon. And we had 33 to 32 vote being cast in favor of the opposition. Since then, as we said, the very night, the Prime Minister conceded to the loss, and the President the next day also conceded to the loss. But within a few days after that, we had this new type of mathematics that everybody's pondering upon. And it was asked of the Speaker to review the decision. He refused to, and he said, take it to the courts, let them make that legal decision. The Chief Justice did not grant permission for the hearing of that. She stated out quite clearly that, you know, this was a vote of 1 vote that made up the majority. It was appealed, and at the appeal court, I don't know what happened there. Apparently, they understood the maths of that, and 2 of the 3 appeal court judges did vote in favor of that appeal and said that it was supposed to be 34 votes that would have been needed instead of the 33. And so it has been taking its rounds around the country, around the Caribbean, around the region, around the world. People are talking about this new type of mathematics and the fact that it will have legal implications for decisions that would have been made over 300 years ago, you know, when the first no confidence motion was passed in the world. But yeah, as I said, Guyana, we like to be the first, but we have to be first in the right things, not in things that are not, you know, correct, and that things that seems fraudulent, corrupt. We don't need that kind of picture coming out of our country today. So you heard the professor talking out it and hoping that, you know, things will prevail in such a way that it will not cause any chaos and confusion as it relates to cases that would have been before. You know, we do hope that on May 9th and 10th, when the case is heard and the decision is being handed down, it will be handed down in a correct way. So that being, coming out of that no confidence motion, we also had the fact that it was being stated that the one person who voted from the government side in favor with the opposition for the no confidence motion, Charandas Persaud, that his vote was invalid because he had dual citizenship, citizenship in Guyana, citizenship in Canada. And that case was also taken to the court on the basis, that is what the no confidence motion was based on, the fact that Charandas Persaud had dual citizenship, and according to the Constitution of Guyana, he should not have been a member of Parliament. Now that sparked off a new set of issues, and persons were called upon after the Chief Justice ruled on that based on the Constitution, that persons in future who are sitting currently in Parliament should not dual citizenship, they needed to resign or give up their dual citizenship. Well, we saw the opposition side, Comrade Gail Teixeira, Comrade Odinga Labumba, and Adrian Anamaya. They were the three persons with dual citizenship. Both Mr. Teixeira and Mr. Labumba agreed to give up their citizenship for the US and Canada. And Mr. Adrian Anamaya, because of family commitment, decided to resign as a member of Parliament because he could not give up his dual citizenship. Since then, we had the government who was stating that, okay, good, first they weren't going to, they're going to go to Parliament, then they came back and said, okay, good, they're going to resign, and it was, they resigned to the president instead of the clerk of the National Assembly, the speaker, and they were going to go to Parliament. They continued to reign on that, and then suddenly, we had, last week, they had Parliament, and they had 4 new persons sworn into Parliament as MPs, replacing the 4 persons, Joseph Harmon, Dominic Gaskin, Rupert Roop-Narine, and Carl Greenidge. They were replaced by 4 persons. And the 4 persons that they were replaced by, it was Mervyn Williams, Reynard Ward, Tabitha Sarabuhali, and Donna Matu. Now, we know that the 4 persons that resigned, they also resigned from their ministerial positions. And Joseph Harmon was the Minister of State within the Ministry of the Presidency. Dominic Gaskin was the Minister of Business. Rupert Roop-Narine was minister within the Ministry of the Presidency. I think he was responsible for public service. And then we had the 4th person, Mr. Carl Greenidge, who was the Minister of Foreign Affairs. Now, those persons have resigned their positions. What we have is that we have Mervyn Williams, who is an advisor to the Minister of Indigenous People's Affairs, and also a member, a director on the boards for NIS, National Insurance Scheme, Guyana Water Inc., the Guyana National Newspapers Limited, and also at the Guyana Forestry Commission. That is the portfolios of Mr. Mervyn Williams, who we're told has replaced Mr. Joseph Harmon in Parliament. Then we have Reynard Ward, who's a farmer from Berbice in Region 6. We have Tabitha Sarabu Hali, who is a University of Guyana lecturer and the chairperson of the WPA. And we will want to believe she has replaced former Minister Rupert Roopnaraine. And then we have Donna Matu, who is the managing director of the NCN in Berbice. And, you know, we had sometime earlier, there was a bit of fiasco going on around that individual. We had the new ministerial appointments, and those appointments were that MP Hemraj Ramkumar from the Essequibo has now been appointed the new Minister of Business, and so he has replaced Minister Dominique Gaskin. We have Tabitha Sarabuhali, who is now the Minister of Public Service within the Ministry of the Presidency. Then we had some reassignments. And the reassignments are that Minister Simona Brooms have been moved from the ministry as minister within the Ministry of Natural Resources to minister within the Ministry of the Presidency with responsibility for youth affairs. We have Dawn Hastings, who has now taken up the position in the Ministry of the Presidency as the new Minister of State. We have Minister Valerie Adams. She has now been transferred to the minister within the Ministry of Agriculture for Rural Affairs, and she was formerly minister within the Ministry of Communities with responsibility for housing. Minister Ferguson, Annette Ferguson, has been removed from the ministry, being minister within the Ministry of Public Infrastructure, and she's now minister within the Ministry of Housing, and she's at the ministry within the Ministry of Communities responsible for housing. So we have the shift taking place there. Mr. Joseph Harmon has now been redesignated as Director General of the Ministry of the Presidency. Today there has been no new appointments for the person who will take up the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And the question that is being asked around is, one, how many persons are going to be responsible for youth? Now, we have a Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sports, or Youth, Sports and Culture, but that takes responsibility for youth. And we have a minister there. We have a director within the ministry, the director of youth. We have an advisor in the Ministry of the Presidency on youth empowerment. And now we have a minister within the Ministry of the President responsible for youth affairs. So you have 4 persons taking up the responsibility for youth. But the question is, what is happening for the youths in this country? And we will want to feel, you know, some persons are jumping up and saying, oh, well, they got rid of some of the old folks and they've put young persons there. But it's my strong belief that those persons are there just to appease the appetites of the supporters of the coalition who have been crying out that, you know, there are no young people in Parliament. So I want to believe that those persons are there for window dressing. Simply for window dressing and to appease the appetites. The work will still be carried on by those who are far older than those persons. And if we look at it, that Mr. Harmon has been removed as Minister of State and has now taken up a responsibility of Director General. It's one of the same thing. And even, I think, a even greater position than the one that he had. Is just that he will not be called a minister. He will not be sitting in Parliament. So all this reshuffling and this, you know, new additions, I think lots of it coming from the pressures being put on the coalition government happens to be something that is there for window dressing. It is not holistic, and I don't think those persons will be given the opportunity to spread their wings or, you know, carve their own niches in the political realm. They're going to be subject to a lot of, you know, supervision and directorship and, you know, management as it so pertains. So new appointments in Parliament, new appointments in the ministries, and reshuffling of persons from one position to the next, and that goes on while we wait for the decision at the CCJ level on that no confidence motion, which sparked all of this off. So let's wait and see what's going to come out of that, and we take it from there. Then we have the position where the CJIA, the Cheddi Jagan International Airport, the big fiasco going on around that, which was started in the PPP administration, the expansion project of the airport, has now been reduced to a rehabilitation. And with the 2 days that we had some rain, it was reported that the airport, the runway was flooded. It was a mess. Then we also have the implementation of some new fees that has to be paid at the airport. And we have the International Air Transport Association coming down on the government for implementing these fees and being able to acquire these fees without seeking the permission from that agency is one, and the manner in which it is done, because persons were complaining they had to go in a line and pay that money. And it is supposed not to be the case. It's supposed to be written for, having permission from the international body, and it being implemented as part of the ticketing process for airfares for persons going out, coming into the country. So that was one fiasco, and with all that is happening with the expansion project being meted down to a rehabilitation project, we had lots and lots of blame being cast on the previous administration. Well, the leader of the opposition, Dr. Barry Jagdeo, in his weekly press conference on the 25th, did have comments to make on that, and we'll go now to that press conference and bring you excerpts from it.
Well, thank you very much for attending this press conference. I've been told that it's a slow news week and that there are very few issues that are generating a lot of exciting public interest, and I think this is largely reflective of our dreary existence, where things seem to be just drifting. However, one issue has been prominently reflected in the media. That is the issue of the CGIA, the Cheddi Jagan International Airport. And I see that there has been a few letters or posts by the minister responsible, and then some responses from Robeson Ben, the former minister. So what I find very strange is that the Minister of Public Infrastructure has returned to the old rhetoric, the pre-2015 rhetoric of blaming the People's Progressive Party for the terrible condition that the project currently finds itself in. You would recall that this project has become their pride and joy, where the entire cabinet was taken on a bus trip several times to view the airport and all the progress made at the airport. And the minister himself has talked up the project about how great it is for Guyana, etc. But I guess now that the calls have become more strident for a full-fledged investigation as to what took place since the coalition government took office at the airport, the minister has gone back to the familiar territory, which is blame the PPP for everything. So in his post, which subsequently got reflected in the newspapers, he said when he took office, that 7% of the contract work was done, and that 35% of the money expended, and they had $44 million of claim. And that 18 months the contractor had worked unsupervised, all with the view of creating the impression that somehow some of the shoddy work that we have witnessed at the airport and the change in the project should be attributed, the blame should be attributed to the People's Progressive Party. So if 7% of the contractor's work was done, or the contract work was done, it didn't matter if it were 18 months of the work was unsupervised, because that was basic work. 93% of the contract work, that is the construction of the airport, the runway, the terminal, the aprons, etc., would have been done by this government. So it is the supervision of the project under the current government that matters, because only 7%, that is the initial work, was done. He said 35% of the money was expended, but that's not wholly true. As Robson Ben pointed out, that they had an advance on the project, which is normal, covered by a bond, which is a mobilization advance that most contracts have. And then he claimed that there was a large claim by the contractor outstanding. And that is true. But we argued at that time that we are not going to honor any claim for escalation, because this was a fixed price contract, a design build contract, and that the contractor took all the risk when they made that proposal. So they did the geotechnical survey for the runway, everything else, and they submitted a price. And therefore, you cannot come later on a fixed price contract and claim escalation. So all of this was accurate. It's true. But it's what happened subsequently that mattered. How did a contract for an entirely new runway of a defined length with a large apron to accommodate 8 aircraft standing at any moment with air bridges attached to a terminal, a new, entirely new terminal, become a rehabilitation project? When was that decision made? It had to be made by this government. And the supervision of 93% of the work, by his own admission, took place under his watch. So any design flaw, any shoddy work, or the redesign of the contract would have had to take place under his watch. And so I saw that he welcomed the investigation belatedly. And I'm very pleased that the Auditor General said that there'd be a full value for money audit conducted on the airport. So what intrigued me a bit is what the minister said when he welcomed the investigation. And I'm sure this welcome is not really a welcome, because you're going to find massive discrepancies, and I dare say corruption at the airport. So the minister said, and I quote directly from him, "Gone are the days when the cry for an investigation sent shivers down the backs of public officials." So I'm wondering if this is really true. If this is true, then this minister just doesn't care. A project of this nature will be investigated, and I'm sure that the findings will be adverse, but he welcomes it. I don't care It doesn't create shivers anymore. I'm not fearful. This is impunity. You know, I'll do what I want. But I wonder if he was shivering when the Public Procurement Commission found that the Demerara Harbor Bridge project that he was personally involved in was a corrupt project done contrary to the procurement laws of Guyana. I wonder if he is shivering now. And I'm wondering if what is happening with that project, because you know on the 16th of August 2018, through Guilty Shearer, we filed a report with the police after the Public Procurement Commission, a constitutional body, ruled that this, in their investigation, that this project was corruptly done. That the minister took an unsolicited bid to the cabinet, got the cabinet to approve it, contrary to the procurement laws of our country, and then awarded this contract using funds from the Demerara Harbor Bridge that even the board of directors didn't know of. And once that report was filed with the police on September 18, 2018 said the probe had started. January 2019, they said they completed the probe and the file is with the police legal consultant, advisor. So from January to now, on a project that is totally corrupt, where the probe was completed, we haven't seen any single a charge laid against the minister. He should have been charged by now and before the courts for corruption. For corruption. The same minister who welcomes the probe and doesn't shiver when there are probes taking place.
Well, you were listening there to Leader of the Opposition, Dr. Barry Jagdeo, at his press conference last week, talking about the situation at the CJIA, and also he went on to talk about the Demerara Harbor Bridge and, you know, what's happening there, the fact that, you know, a report was made to the police about fraud there that has taken place. And so we now open up the phone lines to take some calls here on Talk Back with Gillian. You can call us on 223-2459 or 501-0617. Good evening, call and welcome to Talk Back with Gillian.
Very good night to you, madam.
Good night.
How do you do?
I'm great.
Thank you. It appears as though the ruling party has no total disregard for law and constitution. So we should take the law book and the constitution book them and throw them in the garbage and let it come to tie them to the furnace.
Okay, thank you for coming through.
That apart.
Uh-huh.
Now all these new people they put in, who paying for them, where the money coming from to pay them? Additional staff.
Well, the new appointments you're talking about, the Parliament?
No, these young ministers, they appoint this.
Well, then the ministers have been reshuffled and some have replaced. The Minister of Business was replaced with a current Member of Parliament from Region 2, and Public Service, that person has replaced, I think, Mr. Rupert Rupnarine. So it's that these persons will go off on pension, and then we have the new persons taking place. So maybe it's the pensions we got to study.
Is it pension or they will still be paid by the state?
Well, we have to check and see. Well, they will be paid by the state. The pensions will be paid by the state.
Now, if people have corrupt business, why do you want to shuffle them around? You have to get the police to charge them and put them before the court.
Well, it's only the PPP executives get charged and go before the courts. All right, well, if there's your comments, thank you for coming through. And that was a caller there wondering what will happen to the monies, where the monies will come from. Well, technically, the persons will have stepped out of Parliament. They'll become pensionable from Parliament. And the new persons will take up the positions there in Parliament. And they will now receive the salaries. Good evening and welcome to Talk Back with Gillian.
Hi, Gillian. Thank you very much. I just want to say thank you for what you're doing for us. Creating this program is making us feel very happy to know that there is someone there who's representing us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Yes, you're listening to Talk Back with Gillian here on MTV, and we're looking at the latest issues within the country politically. Good evening and welcome to Talk Back with Gillian.
Hi, Gillian. Good evening.
Good evening.
The first caller who said they don't have respect for this law, right? I need him to get a reflect about the past president, the PPP, and I want him to answer this question. If the PPP had respect for this law, the foolish things they used to do before now, and Mr. Javier complaining, he always on national television talking about what the APNU doing, he should be the last person to be commenting and condemn the APNU right now because he did a lot of nonsense too. So what goes around comes around.
Well, that caller there with what goes around comes around. The thing that I keep asking, is it right if you think somebody did something wrong in the past that when you take over, you should continue to do it? That is not making any sense, and it's not rectifying a situation that you think that was wrong. And that is what you sit in Parliament and you hear, y'all used to do it, so what? It's not right. If I think and I believe that what you did was wrong, it was incorrect, it was impolite, it was not the right thing to do, then when I get my turn to lead, to govern, to manage, why should I do the same thing? It's like pot telling Kitty bottom black. It does not make any sense. And I still cannot understand why people want to look, the PPP did this when they were in government for 23 years. And therefore, does that give you the right to continue doing things that might be wrong? As the caller said, what goes around comes around. No. That's not when you were dealing with leadership. You got to lead by example. And you have to try to better what the previous person or persons did. Good evening. You're on to Talk Back with Gillian.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
About the same thing that the call was talking about, that the PPP did so much wrong. Well, we have a new government now. They said when they come in, whoever did wrong, they will take them to court, do this, do that. They had so much a commission of inquiries and those things, and they just wasting the taxpayers' money. All these inquiries, they didn't find nothing that the PPP did wrong. Okay, there the PPP did things wrong. They're now in power. As you said, because the PPP did wrong, should they do the same thing? They have enough time. They have 4 years now. They're in power. They tried to find fault with the PPP. They took some of them to court. They had Soku behind them, Saru behind them, and they have no evidence to prove anything. So what's the point of doing these things now?
Okay, well, thank you for coming through and thank you for those comments. And this is the point that I'm making, not because somebody did something that you think was wrong, it gives you the right to continue to do it because they did it so I can do it. That is what we often get pulled up for in our homes and in our schools. You're going to school. Not because one child did something wrong, you think that you have the right to do the same thing. Wrong is wrong and therefore you should not do it. And I often say that persons vote governments or political parties into governments with the understanding that you're going to better my life. So I don't want you to come to tell me who did what then, and if they did it that way, I could do it that way. I voted you in to make things better, for you to correct what you think was wrong. You said that on your campaign trail. Now that you're getting there, you're doing the same things and you're throwing back blame. Let me take this next call. Good evening and welcome to Talk Back with Gillian. Hello? Okay, we missed that caller. But that is where the buck stops. We have to be able, if we talk about progress, if we're going to talk about development, then we have to make sure that the things that we do are helpful to the people of our country. Good evening and welcome to Talk Back with Gillian.
Good night, Mom.
Good night.
So about 28 years PNC do wrong, and what about they give them checking back what PPP do wrong? What about 28 years? Let me comment.
Thank you. Well, the PPP does not look at the fact of what happened 28 years under the PNC. When the PPP came into government, they hit the ground running, trying to correct the things that was done wrong for the 28 years. And that is how you're supposed to move. You're supposed to ensure that what was wrong or what you feel was wrong, you try and correct it. Not saying that you're going to do the same things. Good evening and welcome to Talk Back with Gillian.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I think that there's a virus in Guyana that they're looking backwards to what people have done before. If we need to go ahead, we got to lift our head up high and climb those hills and valleys. We have so much to be done. And stop looking backwards. It's only taking us around as dirty water, just around and around and around all the time, recycling.
You're raising up old sores.
Yeah. It's something that it's a virus in Guyana. And we have to remember our national anthem and the pledge. Those who in authority. Our president cannot do all. That's why we have hands, head, and fingers. But still, as the old LFC, they are still scrape eggs in wrong holes. And we have to take out those people. We have to do things the way it's supposed to be done, because we are talking about internationally. Ain't it?
Mm-hmm.
So we have to improve our standard. Look, I am annoyed of Guyana because it's my country. I travel a lot and see what the West Indies do from Carifesta. They steal certain things from Guyana and go and exploit in their country, and it's developed. We have it here and we do not need to do nothing. So that's squatting. The people that pay tax is the persons, especially in environments like West Rhinebelt and East Rhinebelt, who inside paying tax and the one outside, they're depending on us. Mm-hmm. They're sucking us. They're putting trash, and we have to clean the trash. We have to think forward. We have the land. Let it go use it. What the Sophia? Sophia wasn't a big bushy land. Look what it's turning into. There are many places. Let's go get the thing, man, and let the people that are paying the tax for so long enjoy the atmosphere of their environment. Thank you very much for your program, and I know that this will have the third people in Guyana. When I say the third people, the people who is in the areas like West Rhinebelt, all by them discuss on these programs, and they will get results. Blessed be your night.
Thank you. Same to you. Some real encouraging words there from that caller, and that is what we need. Guyana belongs to all of us. When you present your passport and they put nationality, it's Guyanese. When you look at your birth certificate, your nationality, you're Guyanese. On your ID cards, you're Guyanese. Whatever documents you fill up, you're Guyanese. So Guyana belongs to all of us, and all of us must be able to share in the pie. If something was done wrong way back when, whenever whoever takes up governance of the country, you need to better that. Yes, you will reflect. Yes, you will have some talk, oh yes, this happened and that happened, because everything is not picture perfect. But it doesn't mean that because that wrong was done, you have the right to continue in the same way. No, it should not be. Let's better it. Let's better it not only for ourselves, but for our children and our children's children. Let us be able to appease the situation of what would have been done wrong and correct it. Because we're talking about developing. We're a developing country. And if we cannot learn from our mistakes and correct our mistakes, then we're not going to go anywhere. We got to keep going around in a circle all the time, every time, because you know what? We feel that what we're doing, it's right. You did it, so I can do it too. And we have no right to continue in that vein if we're going to want to talk about development. Good evening and welcome to Talk Back with Gillian.
Hi, Gillian. Good night and keep up the good show work with you. Talking about the CCJ, the airport. I work in an airport. I work in a public transportation. And for the years that I work, I never see stray dogs at that airport. I never see wastage, plastic board. If you see that airport, it's worse than Lombard Street. So that's what you're saying is true. The airport is the first site of visitors in this country and is the last site of some people who would want to come. If you see that condition of that airport. So what you're saying about the airport, I work there every day. I go there sometimes twice, 3 times a day. If you see stray dogs at that airport, we need to have to come in. Really, people and baggages there. If you see the condition of our international airport.
Okay, well, what we're talking about there is that it was to be expansion and now it's rehabilitation, and even that is going wrong. But I'm running up to program time here, so I have to, cut your call off. Sorry about that, but I hope you'll be back next week. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Well, that would have been our final call for this evening because program time is upon us here. And we were looking at the issues of the $10.3 million awarded to the Video Mega Productions Company that is owned by Minister Cathy Hughes within 4 months in 2018. And we also looked at the new appointed members of Parliament and the reshuffling of the ministerial positions and those who would have resigned. We also looked at the excerpts from the Office of the Opposition Leaders Press Conference, which spoke about the issue of the Chedi Jagan International Airport and the Demerara Harbor Bridge. And likewise, we listened to the commentary on the no confidence motion that is before the CCJ for its final decision. And those commentary came from Professor Errol Miller. So those were the topics on our program, Talk Back with Gillian, this evening. Before I go, I want to leave you with a quote for today. And we know tomorrow schools will reopen after the Easter holiday. I hope you had a great Easter weekend. And the kids have to get back out to school tomorrow. And I want to leave this quote with you and you could pass it on to them. Education is the passport to the future. For tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Education is the passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. And it's not only for education, it's in every aspect of our lives. Once we apply ourselves, it's the passport for the future, because in the future, we have to prepare for it. And unless you prepare for it, you will not be able to excel, manage, govern, whatever you have to do in leadership to take yourself to that higher point. You wouldn't be able to do it effectively. So this is where I take my leave of you for today. I'm Gillian Burton Persaud. It was great having me in your homes. Thank you. Have a great week ahead and the rest of the evening. So long. I'll be back with you next Sunday on Talk Back with Gillian.